Hello and welcome to the Hunger Games. I mean the Maze Runner. Wrong book. Anyway, welcome to my report/review of the Maze Runner book and movie, and I'm just going to basically explain the differences. So that's going to be pretty cool. It probably won't, probably be very boring. Anyway, so yeah, before we get into the book/movie, I'm going to introduce you to the characters. Alright, let's go. Forgot to mention this, the book is written by James Dashner and its genre is science fiction slash post-apocalyptic fiction. So yeah. Our first character is the main character, who's Thomas, who in the movie is played by Dylan O'Brien. And Thomas is a very curious character. He's always asking questions and nobody ever tells him anything. Which is basically the summarization of the entire book. He asks a question and nobody tells him anything. They're just like, yeah, it's a thingamajiggy, I gotta go do a thing, screw you. Okay, literally, why is nobody telling me anything? I just got here, why won't you tell me anything? Maybe it's for the reason that nobody likes you for no reason. Oh. Our next character is Newt. Newt is played by Thomas Brody Sangster. I have no idea how you say your last name, Thomas, so sorry about that. But Newt is a brave character. He's got an accent. He's British, so it's always good. You know, especially when it's supposed to be a group of teenage boys who look somewhat like adults, but that does not really matter. He's not stupid, unlike almost every other character in this series. So yeah, that's Newt, probably your favourite character. Next up, we have Mino. Mino is played by Ki Hong Lee, and Mino is a very alert and fast character, I guess you can say. He's the keeper of the runners in the movie/book. He's always alert, he's ready for anything, he's pretty prepared, and if there's something new, he's always able to at least try and figure something out to deal with the new situation that has been brought up. Sorry if I'm describing these characters terribly, but I'm just bad at describing people. So, sorry. Next. Our next character is Teresa. Teresa is played by Kaya Scodelario. I have no idea how you say that last part. You have a very confusing name. And Teresa is an important character because she does stuff for the story, which you're gonna find out later on in this terrible report that I have to do in 2 days. So yeah, she's like a key character for like the first movie, and then she's like, don't really need her. Our next character is Gally, who's played by Will Poulter. Yeah, and Gally is, how do I say this? He's a terrible person and you do not want to be friends with him. If you see that man, you have complete permission to punch him. I'm kidding, don't punch the actual man, but if you're stuck in a world where you're in the glade, you can punch Gally, because nobody likes Gally. He's rude, he kills people. Our next character is Albie. Albie is played by Amul Amin, and Albie is the leader of everyone in the glade. He makes sure all the rules are intact, he makes sure everyone's following them, no one breaks them, he comes up with the rules himself, and is actually the first person to have actually been in the maze, which will be explained later. Our next character is Chuck, and Chuck is played by Blake Cooper, and Chuck is the first person to become a proper friend of Thomas, and he's there to kind of introduce him to what goes on. He explains it all, and is sort of like the companion of the story, like the friend that the main character is given. our last and final character, finally. It's like been 5 minutes or something. But our final character is the enemy. She is played by Patricia Clarkson, and she is the enemy of our characters, of course. She works for a company called Wicked, which we'll find out about later. And I don't remember her name, but for the sake of it, I'm going to call her a nutcase, alright? Alright, let's just go with that because she's crazy. First scene that we have is Thomas in a little box. He wakes up, he has no idea where he is, the box is going up, and after a while there's a door that opens, and the box has stopped moving. Then another set of doors opens, and Gally jumps down, and he's like, "Hey Greenie, prepare to hate me," and then takes him out. He's surrounded by gliders, that's what they're called, and Thomas is confused as heck, so he gets up and just runs away. Then after some running, he falls over, gets back up, and then just kind of looks around and is like, "Oh my gosh, whoa, this is walls, so many walls, ooh." Then he gets locked up. Albie then, the character Albie, takes him out of his little cage and says, "As long as you don't run again, we won't lock you up because you're nuts." And he's like, "Alright." And then Albie kind of just introduces him to the Glade, and the Glade is a place where everyone does their job. It's like school, but worse. Thomas then meets Chuck, his soon-to-be friend, or immediate friend. Thomas notices there's these big walls around him and that there are doors that are open. He asks Chuck about them a little bit after he's already walked up to it. After walking up, he's just like, "So, what's going on?" And a few guys come out of the maze, the characters being Ben and Mino. Mino, as I introduced earlier, and Ben, another character who won't be relevant later. He asks why they're out. He says because they're runners, they know more than the maze. Thomas learns that there is a maze outside of these walls. And that's pretty much it. So he goes up to it, he has a look, he gets pushed down by Gally. Then the doors close on him and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that, oh my goodness." And then, that's pretty much it. Later the night, they have a little party, and Thomas hangs out with Newt. Newt being our British character. And Newt kind of explains what happens and where he is. He tells them about the Grievers, the big giant monsters that you will see later, and he kind of tells him that overnight the doors close, the Grievers come out, which is why no one survived in the maze overnight. I'm not surprised. And that the maze actually changes overnight, and that the runners are made to go out and, map the maze, see what they can find, what the maze's pattern is, if they can find it any way out of the Glade, out of where they are. They want to go home. So yeah, Thomas gets out, his memory is wiped, and he's introduced to the Glade. A little later, Thomas is asking questions to Newt while he's doing his job, like everyone else. Newt keeps telling him about all this stuff and how they can't get out by building a ladder, even though they can easily do that. He tells him to go get some more fertilizer. Thomas goes out and gets more fertilizer. As he's doing so, our recent character Ben is there, but he's a little bit nuts. Turns out he was stung and that, he attacks Thomas. Albie then helps him out. In the book, at least, Albie helps him out on his own. In the movie, Thomas is chased and then everyone else helps out. So Ben is captured and then Ben is sentenced out into the maze. And, is banished because Albie is stung, and getting stung is bad because it changes you. It makes you go crazy and you want to kill people, which is why nobody can have someone who's been stung. So they banish Ben. After Ben's banishing, Thomas is a little confused and kind of creeped out. And then, after a while of more chit-chat and whatnot, they hear a noise, which is coming from the box. Can you believe it? My goodness gracious. They go up to the box and see that it's coming back up, and that there's a girl inside. This girl being Teresa, as you saw before. She has a note in her hand called, well, it says she's the last one ever, so she's the last Glader to ever go to the Glade. And everyone's just kind of like, well, that's kind of weird. Why is she the last one ever? What's going on? My goodness. So, yeah, that's your initial incident for ya. I also forgot to mention that they have a little meeting because Gally gets a little suspicious of Thomas because all this new stuff is happening. And Gally goes a little insane and runs away and nobody knows where he's gone. So he just sort of disappears. So yeah. Later on, Mino and Albie go into the maze to search around. Thomas asks why, and that's because, well, Ben is in the maze and he's probably dead. They find out that they find a dead Griever. There's a dead Griever that they find. So Mino and Albie go out to check it. After a while, they never come back and it's getting late, about time for the doors to close. And as the doors start closing, everyone sees Mino and Albie. Albie seems to be hurt because he's stung, and Mino seems to be carrying him. Thomas, at the last seconds, almost as when the doors are about to close, decides to jump in and be a hero, and starts to just kind of wiggle through the doors to the end. Then he's trapped on the other side, in the maze with Mino and Albie. Mino runs off because he's scared, and Thomas decides, I'm going to stay and help Albie, and helps Albie into a little thing, just kind of lifts him up using some of the vines. After he's done that, Thomas, as he's doing it, he realises that there's a Griever coming and decides, oh, I need to hide. And then the Griever kind of spots him, and in the book, he does some pretty much parkour Darude Sandstorm kind of thing, and does Spider-Man and swings on the vines, but in the movie he just hides and then runs away from a Griever, and then falls down a wall that's covered in vines, which soften his landing. After a while of running, he runs back into Mino, and in the movie, he actually manages to kill the Griever by getting, because as you know, the maze changes throughout the night, so like the things just sort of move, so you have the possibility of being squished. And he manages to time it perfectly and squishes a Griever, but in the book, he manages to trip them into a little pit, which is probably a little bit better, but then again, that's not my decision to make. Anyway, after he, tricks about 4 Grievers into a pit, Mino is like, oh yeah, that's really cool, alright, so we've done it. After they get out of the maze, they tell everyone what happens at another meeting. Everyone decides what they should do with Thomas, since he did break a rule after all. He wasn't supposed to go into the maze while they were about to close and be a hero. They decided to just give him a night in the cell, and that's pretty much it. That's not really important, honestly. It's just whatever. After a while of being in the cell, he gets out, and it's for like a night or whatever. He gets out, and then, I believe, they start talking about what's going to happen next, because, obviously, things are changing, and Thomas actually becomes a runner. And him and Mino go running out for a few times. They don't find anything, they can't get out. It's kind of been proven. Alright, I'm doing this next bit in video form, just because just adding all the visuals to this next part will take way too long and I'll never get this done. So I'm just going to do it like this, then I'm going to go back to visuals where everything's a little bit shorter. Alright, next up is, after they get back to the maze,
Teresa actually wakes up while Thomas is talking to all the other characters about other stuff, why, like how they're gonna get out, whatnot. Thomas before had already known her name was Teresa, so they already know her name's Teresa, and Thomas runs out into the forest and just sort of sits there, and then after a while, Teresa appears and is like, "Hello, I'm Teresa. What am I doing with my hands? I don't know." So then they talk for a bit, and it turns out they can talk telepathically. It's really weird. I don't get it either. Technology is very advanced at that point in time, so yeah. So they start talking, and then New Albie and pretty much everyone else comes along and is like, "Alright, enough chit chat. The walls are not closed, or the doors to the walls are not closing, and it's becoming nighttime. And you know what happens at nighttime. I mean, you were in the maze after all. So, you know, the doors aren't closing. The grievers are going to come in and eat your cookies," or something like that. So they put Teresa, I believe, I'm thinking of this off the top of my head, they lock Teresa up because she's, you know, new and she's doing weird stuff. Things are happening, no one likes it, no one likes change, one ever does. So they put Teresa in a cage, in like a little cell, that's mentioned before, and they leave her in there for a night where she's safe. And then the others all go and hide into like one of the houses they've made and just hide out there for the night. And they hear the grievers come in. The grievers just kind of roll in. Apparently, I don't know how that, they don't show that in the movie, but they just sort of roll in, climb up the wall to in the house, in the big house, right? And as they're sitting there quiet, nobody makes a sound. Gally bursts through the room into the room. Gally disappeared like earlier, so that's why it's all like, oh my gosh, Gally, Jesus, where have you been? You look weird. He's scruffy. Anyway, so Gally comes in and he starts talking nonsense about how Thomas is bad and we should probably kill him by hanging him or something like that. I don't know. Who reads? Yeah, Gally then starts ripping part of the wall off. The Griever then, obviously, on the other side, is just there, like, hello, and New tries to stop Gally from killing himself, and Gally knocks New out due to the fact that Gally is 10 times bigger than New. Sorry, New. Poor New, he gets knocked out, but, yeah, the Griever takes Gally, and that's it, because Gally did say they only take one person, one by one, every night, so Thomas is just kind of like, oh, well, there goes Gally. That sucks. So, it doesn't suck. Anyway, after that, everyone goes out and is just like, oh god, everything just went to crap. Sorry. So, Thomas goes to Teresa, obviously, and they start talking about stuff, and then they start thinking. Imagine, can you believe it? They start thinking. They actually start thinking for once. You know, something you never see in books or movies. Thomas and Teresa kind of figure out that if you take all 6, I believe it's actually 8, but like 8 or 6 maps, and then you start tracing over them or like doing whatever with them, I just spoiled that, but if you do something with the maps that they've, you know, mapped, you know, obviously the runners have mapped it, so if you take them all, you can get a code. So they decide, alright, so what we need to do is get a code from the maps. But here's the thing, they have no way of getting out. So how do they get out? Well, that comes into the second night. They all hide in the same house, probably on a different floor this time, because the last one got destroyed by Albie, surprisingly. But everything's made out of wood, so whatever. And they sit there, quiet again. They hear a pfft from another room or another floor, and someone comes down and he's like, they got Dave! Nobody knows who Dave is, because no one introduces him. Plus there's a lot of gliders. Anyway, Dave is taken, and Thomas knows what he has to do. And what does he have to do? He has to get stung. That's right, he has to risk his life and sting himself just to save everyone. So, as they're taking Dave, the grievers are just rolling away. Thomas decides to run up to them and jump on them. and try and save Dave, even though that was not his plan in the first place, and was to almost get himself killed. And he, yes, successfully gets himself stung. And in the book, they never show the memories, but in the book they do. So basically, he is reminded of who Thomas really is. Thomas realizes who he is, and basically, he works for Wicked, and Wicked is the people who put all the kids and all the teenagers, the gliders, if you will, in the maze. So Wicked is good, is who put them there. I don't remember what Wicked stands for, but they're the ones that put them there. So yay, at least we know something. Woo! Anyway, God, I'm weird. So yeah, that's pretty much the what's it called again? Rising action. Right. Yeah. Rising action. Rising action for you folks. They figured a thing out and almost got themselves killed doing it. Now back to visual stuff where I can actually be bothered to edit it. I don't care if that sounded stupid or that entire clip was stupid, but that saves me a lot of time and a lot of homework, because I'd never get that done if I had added visuals, sorry. Just saying. After all that jazz is done, Thomas has now got his memories back, and he also figures out how he's supposed to get in the maze. Or out of the maze, sorry. So, what he does is he says to everyone, the way to get out of the maze is to jump into the pit. Because it's not actually a pit, it's a little hole that leads to their, escape. It's also mentioned earlier in the book that the Grievers actually go into the hole, which is also something I forgot to add. But, so, okay, now they know that. But what happens when they get in the pit? Well, Thomas knows. What he has to do is he has to trace over the maps, put them all together, and he'll get a letter. And then the more they do this sort of thing, they get a code. They get, like, words, right? So the words should be on the screen right now. I don't remember what they are, but they should be on the screen. They should be on the screen right now saying what the code is, and that is basically the climax. The whole movie led up to them figuring out how to get out of the maze. This is a pretty short one, so yeah. Alright, since this thing is already long enough, I'm going to try and make this as short as possible. Alright, so after they've got the code, they all decide, yes, we need to go and jump in the pit, take our risks, since this is the only way out of here. So they all run to go to the pit. As they get to the pit, there's some Grievers. And what to do? They do remember that the Grievers are only taking one at a time at the night. So Albie sacrifices himself and jumps into them. Oh my goodness gracious me. He jumped into them. But that turns out that's not how it works now, since the creators already know what they're doing. So, the rest, everyone starts fighting all the Grievers, and Thomas, Chuck and Teresa jump into the pit. In the pit, yes, it is. It's their escape. As they're in the escape, Teresa starts punching in the code, but a Griever comes down and Thomas has to fight off the Griever. As Teresa's putting in the code, she can't put the last code in, or the last word in, which is push. And then Chuck, somehow, notices a big button, or a little button that says kill the maze, and Thomas just says to push it. So Teresa pushes it, and the Griever stops attacking Thomas at least, and so they're just kind of like, did we do it? The rest of the other characters come down that have survived at least, which is like Mino, Newt, some other characters like Frypan the cook, Winston, who's like, I think he like does stuff with animals, so like for food, and and then they all go in. So they go, and the door opens, they go in, and they're like, oh yeah, it's our exit now. And when they get to the beginning, when they get to where they're trying to get to, they know the creators are there. And the creators are there, and they're like, you know what, we have a surprise for you. And there's someone next to the
Nutcase, as we talked at the beginning of the video. So Nutcase is there, and she's got someone next to him, or next to her, and this person reveals to be Gally, and it turns out Gally's being controlled by Wicked. So Nutcase makes Gally throw a knife at Thomas, and Thomas is just like, oh my gosh, there's a knife flying at my face, and Chuck sacrifices himself for Thomas. He literally just jumps in front of the knife. In the movie, Gally just shoots him, but yeah. So Chuck ends up dying. Poor Chuck. Very lovable character. Anyway, so after Chuck emotionally dies and Thomas cries for a little bit, Thomas then proceeds to beat the absolute living heck out of Albie. Gally. Albie's dead. Gally. So he starts to beat up Gally. Unfortunately, this is not in the movie. Seeing Gally getting beaten up would have been absolutely hilarious, in my opinion. But unfortunately, that does not happen. After Thomas beats him up for a while and Mino and Newt pull him away, some people come in to rescue the characters. In the movie, they just take them to the helicopter and fly them off to safety, but in the book, there's a bit more explaining that goes on. So, I guess we'll get to that in the next part.
Alright, end of the video. About time. Alright, so here's the end of the movie in a quick, short, little sentence. Well, not sentence, but... Yeah. So, the book ends with the characters getting on a train, being rescued by the people, the army people who came in and started shooting all the wicked scientists and whatnot. And basically, they get on the train, and the characters ask what's going on, what's happened, and they basically explain the sun has engulfed the earth, or it's just the sun has grown and is burning the earth, and everyone's just dying, and that there's a new disease called the flare that turns you into basically a zombie. In the movie, you basically become a zombie, but in the book, you become you are you, alright? But you're nuts. You're absolutely crazy, and you're a cannibal. You go nuts. They're called cranks. So that's basically at the end of the movie. Scorched Trials and the Death Cure are the sequels, and The Kill Order is the prequel, which is when the sun and the flare disease first happened. So yeah, good book, long video.